They said Proxima 117 would be a challenge. Calling it a death world seemed like standard military hyperbole. As Commander Leland Dravek of the 82nd Interstellar Regiment, I'd heard it all before. Every hostile planet was supposedly the worst. Every mission was supposedly impossible. I should have listened more carefully. Our carrier ships entered the atmosphere on what our intel called the calm side of the planet. 3,000 of the Galactic Federation's finest soldiers under my command, ready to establish a foothold against the Vakari collective who had claimed this Hell's Cape 6 months prior. Atmospheric readings normal, Commander. Lieutenant Abner reported as our ships descended through clouds that shimmered with an unnatural violet hue. Though these energy signatures are unusual. I nodded, studying the holographic display. Proxima 117 appeared deceptively beautiful from orbit, swirling blues and greens beneath that strange violet atmosphere. We'd been briefed on the basics. Higher gravity than Earth standard, aggressive flora, unpredictable weather patterns, and native organisms that had evolved in conditions that would kill most sentient species. What the briefing failed to mention was that everything on this planet was connected. The landing was smooth, the only thing that went according to plan. We established Base Camp Horizon in a relatively flat area surrounded by forests of blade-like vegetation that swayed despite the absence of wind. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, setting up defensive perimeters, scientific stations, and communication arrays. Captain Lorvik approached me as the twin suns began to set. "Sir, the scouts haven't returned, and we're picking up strange vibrations beneath the surface." Before I could respond, the ground trembled. Not like an earthquake, more like a muscle contracting. "All units, defensive positions." I ordered through the comm. That's when we heard the screams from the western perimeter. I rushed over with my tactical team to find 3 soldiers being dragged into the ground, the earth itself seeming to liquefy beneath them. Private Marist reached for my hand. I grasped her armor, pulling with all my augmented strength, but the planet pulled harder. She disappeared with a final, terrified look that would haunt me forever. "The planet is alive," our xenobiologist, Dr. Vanali, whispered beside me. "The entire ecosystem appears to be a single macroorganism." As darkness fell, the attacks intensified. The bladegrass forests uprooted themselves, becoming armies of spear-wielding nightmares. The ground opened up beneath our heavy equipment. The violet clouds descended, dissolving armor and flesh with equal efficiency. "Command, this is Dravek. We need immediate extraction." I shouted into my comm. The response came through broken and distorted, negative orbital interference, unable to approach 72 hours. By midnight, we'd lost a third of our forces. By dawn, another third. And we'd yet to encounter a single Vakari soldier. We didn't need to. Proxima 117 was doing their work for them. Day 2 began with a mist that rose from the ground. A mist that carried microscopic parasites that burrowed into any exposed skin. Soldiers began hallucinating, turning weapons on each other before their nervous systems collapsed. "We need to move to higher ground," I ordered the remaining officers. Of our original 3,000, barely 800 remained. Major Christovan pointed to a ridge in the distance. "Scanners show less biological activity there. Possibly mineral-based formations the organism hasn't incorporated." We moved out in tight formation, abandoning equipment we couldn't carry. The wounded were supported or carried. I walked the perimeter, trying to project a confidence I no longer felt. "Commander," Dr. Vanali pulled me aside, her voice low. "I've been analyzing samples. This planet doesn't just attack, it learns. Each assault is more targeted than the last. It's studying our weaknesses." "You're anthropomorphizing," I replied, though uncertainty gnawed at me. She shook her head. "The Vakari claimed this world without losing significant numbers." "How?" "I think they found a way to communicate with it." Before I could digest this, the ridge we'd been approaching shimmered and changed shape. What had appeared solid from a distance revealed itself as thousands of creatures, crystalline arthropods with too many limbs. their bodies reflecting light to create the illusion of rocky terrain. Ambush, Lieutenant Obener shouted, just before the swarm descended. I've fought in 17 campaigns across the galaxy. I've faced the hive warriors of Brenthal and the machine legions of the Mechanical Accord. Nothing compared to the precision and coordination of these creatures. They didn't attack randomly. They targeted communications officers first, then medics, then squad leaders. We fought for 6 hours. When we finally broke through, 322 soldiers remained. As we regrouped in a cave system that our scanner suggested was inorganic, Captain Lorvik approached with grim news. Our long-range communications array is gone. The emergency beacon is damaged. It's broadcasting, but at reduced power. And our orbital sensors detect Verkari ships in the atmosphere. They're watching us die, I said bitterly. That night, the cave walls began secreting a corrosive fluid. We lost another 80 soldiers before evacuating. By the third morning, we were down to 141. No perimeter, minimal supplies, communications equipment failing. And the planet kept coming. Flying predators with acidic blood. Pollen that triggered anaphylaxis. Even the water we filtered became toxic within hours, as if the planet was modifying its chemistry in response to our filtration methods. It's not just alive, Dr. Vinali insisted during what would be our final strategy session. It's intelligent, and it's decided we're an infection to be eliminated. The turning point came when we captured a Verkari scout. It had been observing us from what appeared to be a safe distance, not engaging, just watching our numbers dwindle. Specialist Drakhthan, our best stealth operative, managed to incapacitate it without raising alarm. Why aren't your people being attacked? I demanded once the scout regained consciousness. The Verkari's multifaceted eyes regarded me calmly. Because we asked permission to be here, it said in surprisingly fluent common. Permission? From whom? From Proxima 117. Or, as we call her, Calyx, the mother who devours. Dr. Vinali pushed forward. The planet is sentient? Truly conscious. Not as you understand consciousness, the Verkari replied. But aware, protective, ancient beyond your comprehension. Over the next few hours, we learned the truth. The Verkari hadn't conquered this world. They had communed with it. A ritualistic exchange of biochemical information that the planet interpreted as respectful communication rather than invasion. Your species entered aggressively, the scout explained. You cut into the surface without offering exchange. You established dominance patterns. Calyx interpreted this as parasitic behavior. With Dr. Vinali's help, we managed to synthesize a compound similar to what the Verkari used in their communion ritual. It required organic material from a commanding officer, my blood, tissue, and neural pattern recordings. By this point, we were down to 68 survivors. The extraction was still a day away, assuming it could even reach us through the increasingly violent atmospheric disturbances. I made the decision. Prepare the compound. I'll deliver it to the nexus point the scout identified. Captain Lorvik objected. Sir, the survival probability is less than 7%, which is better than our current trajectory of 0, I replied. The nexus point was 8 kilometers away, through terrain that had already killed thousands of soldiers. I selected a team of 5 volunteers, all of whom understood it was likely a one-way mission. We never made it as a group. The planet separated us with frightening efficiency. Sergeant Felon was taken by burrowing creatures. Lieutenant Pax disappeared in a suddenly appearing mist. The others fell one by one until only I remained, clutching the container with our offering. When I finally reached the nexus, a pulsating, organic structure that resembled a massive neural cluster, I was delirious from toxin exposure and blood loss. My armor was compromised, and internal diagnostics warned of multiple system failures. I released the compound directly onto the neural cluster and waited for death. Instead, something remarkable happened. The neural cluster absorbed the compound, pulsating more rapidly. The ground beneath me softened, but instead of pulling me down to my death, it formed a cradle-like depression. Pain lanced through my skull as something, a neural tendril, a psychic probe, made contact with my mind. Images flooded my consciousness. The planet's birth from cosmic dust, eons of evolution, the development of its unified consciousness. I saw how it had repelled previous visitors who had approached with harmful intent. I also felt its curiosity about us, about humanity and the Galactic Federation. It hadn't understood our intentions. It had only perceived threat and responded accordingly. With my remaining strength, I projected thoughts of cooperation, of mutual benefit, of respectful coexistence. I showed the planet memories of peaceful human settlements, of conservation efforts, of reverence for life. The connection lasted for what felt like hours, but may have been minutes. When it withdrew, I lay gasping on the ground, forever changed. I understood now why the Vakari referred to the planet as Mother. It nurtured what it accepted and eliminated what it rejected, with a dispassionate efficiency of natural selection. My comm unit crackled to life unexpectedly. "Commander Dravek, do you read?" It was Captain Lorvik, her voice filled with disbelief. "I read you," I managed my own voice hoarse. "Sir, the hostile activity has ceased. All of it. The atmospheric interference is clearing, and we're picking up approach vectors from the extraction team." I looked around. The blade grass stood motionless. The predatory creatures that had been stalking us had retreated. Even the air felt different, still alien, still dangerous, but no longer actively try to kill us. "How many survivors?" I asked, dreading the answer. 43 confirmed, sir. "We've consolidated at the original landing site. The planet, it's allowing us to exist here now." As I made my way back to the landing zone, I noticed subtle changes. Pathways seemed to form ahead of me. Certain plants shifted away rather than attacking. The planet wasn't helping me, exactly, but it was no longer hindering. The extraction ships arrived 6 hours later. As the surviving members of my command boarded, I lingered, feeling the strange connection that now existed between me and this world. Dr. Vanali approached, her face haggard, but eyes bright with scientific fascination. "Commander, preliminary analysis suggests your cellular structure has been altered. The communion changed you at a fundamental level." "I know," I replied. "I can feel it. You may be the key to establishing a permanent presence here, a bridge between our species and this entity." I looked out at the alien landscape that had consumed nearly 3,000 souls under my command. Not a military presence. Never that. Proxima 117 will not be conquered. 1 year later, I stood again on the surface of the world, now officially designated in Federation records as Calyx, the name borrowed from the Vakari. The diplomatic compound around me was minimal, designed to impact the planet systems as little as possible. I was no longer Commander Dravek. I had resigned my commission upon return to Federation space. Now I served as chief liaison, the only human the planet would consistently tolerate for extended periods. The changes within me had progressed. My cellular structure continued to incorporate elements native to Calyx. My senses had expanded. I could feel the subtle communications between different sections of the planetary organism, like overhearing whispers in another room. Dr. Vanali, who had remained as head scientist, approached with her daily report. The third communion attempt was successful. Lieutenant Maver maintained connection for 17 minutes without adverse effects. I nodded, pleased. We had developed a safer version of the communion process, allowing limited communication between specially trained individuals and the planetary consciousness. Each successful communion taught us more about this extraordinary world and expanded the areas where humans could safely operate. "And the Vakari delegation?" I asked. "Arriving tomorrow. Their high ecologist seems particularly interested in our communion techniques." The diplomatic breakthrough had been unexpected. Our shared experience with Calyx had opened communication channels with the Vakari collective that decades of traditional diplomacy had failed to establish. Both civilizations recognized that understanding this planet was worth more than possessing it. That evening, I walked alone to the nexus point, my nexus point, where a year ago I had expected to die, but instead had been transformed. The planetary consciousness recognized me immediately, and the familiar neural connection established itself with comfortable ease. "You have brought more like yourself," it communicated, not in words, but in concepts and impressions. "Yes," I responded in kind. "They come to learn, not to take." I sensed satisfaction, curiosity, and something akin to amusement from the vast intelligence. It had expected our extinction and found our adaptation intriguing. The others who came before, the Verkari, they return also. "Yes. We all wish to understand you better." A pulse of emotion that might have been approval. "Understanding requires becoming. You have begun this process. The others must follow if they wish to remain." I knew what it meant. The subtle cellular changes occurring within me were just the beginning. Calyx didn't merely permit visitors, it incorporated them. Those who would stay long-term would become part of it, in some small way. Not assimilated, but adapted, changed to exist in harmony with the greater organism. As I walked back to the compound under the violet sky, I thought of the thousands who had died here. Their bodies had been absorbed by Calyx, their matter repurposed. In some strange way, they were still here, part of this living world. I had been the only survivor of that ill-fated military expedition, but I would not be the last human to find a place here. Already, the first permanent research team was preparing for extended communion and the changes that would follow. The Federation military had officially classified Proxima 117 as unsuitable for strategic development, a polite way of saying they wouldn't throw more soldiers at an unwinnable fight. Instead, a new type of colonization was emerging. Small groups of scientists, diplomats, and specially prepared individuals who understood that living here meant becoming something neither fully human nor fully Calyx. As the twin sun set, I felt the planet's rhythms synchronize with my own heartbeat. I alone had survived because I had learned to listen when everyone else had tried to conquer. Now, I would teach others to do the same. In the end, our greatest discovery wasn't this planet. It was the understanding that some worlds don't need to be conquered. They need to be joined.